everyone, to a special episode of Podcast of the Fallen. This is going to be a full book spoiler discussion and both books before it of Memories of Ice in the Book of the Fallen. And we have a guest here, Lee.
Hello.
We should say our names as well. I always forget to do that. I'm Nathan.
Yep, and I'm Matt. We're back.
Yeah. We're back. Hopefully more will be joining us in a little bit. And yeah, I don't know. Matt, overall thoughts on Memories of Ice after, because you were devastated there at the end, but what are your thoughts on the book as a whole?
As a whole, I'm torn, but it was a really good book. It's probably one of the few books I would easily give a 5 out of 5 on, just because by the ending it wrapped everything up so nicely for some characters and some arcs, and then it set up some other people's stories or whatever they're gonna do afterwards quite nicely. And I don't know, it left a lot open, which I appreciated. Like it kept me on my toes. Like there wasn't much I felt like I could predict going through the story, which is nice because it's not always terribly fun when you're reading a story or watching a show and you're like, I know what's going to happen next. This is easy. This is an easy book. And so this one was a lot of fun just because like throughout the whole story it was like one thing after another where I was like, oh, that didn't go how I thought it would. So overall, I really enjoyed it. It's a really good book.
Yep. I what happens is I get to the end of Book of the Fallen each time, and I kind of forget how much I love Memories of Ice because I love so many of the later books so much too. So reading it this time at the end of our finale episode, I said 10 out of 10, no notes. And I think that's basically
Fair.
a good way to sum up how I feel about Memories of Ice.
Oh yeah. No,
Okay.
it's really good. It's just so many good and tragic things that happen that it feels real. And I mean, I'm not very emotional. I feel like I've said that before, but it gets my like I feel it emotionally on speaking with some of these characters and their deaths. So I was like, you did a good job.
And Lee, I
Oh
know,
boy.
well,
Oh
I was
boy,
going
I
to
have to spill
say,
the beans. Um, the first time through, Memories of Ice was by far my favorite book, like ever. I've not read many books to be fair, so it's not like a huge achievement, but it was when I decided, yeah, I'm gonna love this series. Then the Bone Hunters came along, but that's a different story.
yep.
Um, on a reread, weirdly, I think I put Dead House Gates higher, and I'm not sure where Memories of Ice would place because Memories of Ice, we'll get to that later, is very traditional. It's very fantasy novel-esque, and it does that
Yes.
very well. It's just that the rest of the Book of the Fallen is not that. So you end up liking it so much, and you're like, this feels icky, generic, really fucking good, but I've seen this before. I've not seen the rest of the shit before. But the things that Memories of Ice does, it does impeccably. Even the things which other people don't like, I really like about the book. Overall, if the other books weren't as good as they are, I would like this book a lot more. It's like a 9, probably, like out of 10. 9.2, maybe. It's a really good book. It's just that House Gate is up there, and Bone Hunters, Reaver Scale, all that ish. Dust of Dreams, The Crippled God is also up there. So, yeah, I think it would be fair to say that Memories of Ice is a really good, really, really. I don't think I can stress that really enough. It's a really good book. So I'm gonna stop it there before you know,
Uh,
I expose
is it?
myself further. Yeah,
No, is this a good way to say what you were trying to say? It's a really fucking goddamn good book.
yeah. It's just like the other books are really, really, really fucking goddamn good books. So I'm torn. I'm in a bind here.
Yep. See, Malazan is one of the only series where I don't think I can make, like, I don't care. Like, I shouldn't care about any series where people place their books or how they rank them. But Malazan is like the only series where I can look at someone where they have the bottom book, like my least favorite book, as their favorite. And I'm like, well, yeah, okay. I can see that.
Oh boy,
Uh,
where do you even start with Memories of Ice? Like, I think we're stumped
that is,
because like, where do you start?
there's so much in this book. Like, you talked about how it is the most like a traditional fantasy book, like the structure wise, but then at the same time, Erickson is like, no, I'm not going to give you one climactic battle. I'm going to give you a climactic battle right in the middle of the book with a cannibal army, and what you thought was going to be a last stand with the Malazans coming in to save the day. I'm not going to do that to you. I'm going to destroy you inside as well with that.
There, because of how much we spaced out this book, it was like I was thinking back, I was like, I can't believe that was part of this book. That felt like so long ago.
Yeah, if
Like
you give me
I was just gonna say when we were talking about Rake and like him showing up for just the meeting and then the first battle, like earlier today and like yesterday, I was thinking, I was like, that was all in this book. We read that all in the same thing.
Yeah, we recorded our first episode of Memories of Ice on November 27th, and it is
Oh
now
damn.
February 24th.
Yep.
Uh, because of holidays and vacations and things, we had to take several breaks of several weeks. So,
Yep.
I'm just gonna like cough into the microphone, like, and not bring up when we last recorded Fall of Light on Smiley's. Right? Okay. It's been a while. But anyway, um, you mentioned Kapistan, and like, goddamn, we have to start with Kapistan, right?
we
You
have
can't
to
start
talk
anywhere
about,
else.
yeah. Uh, I don't, Capistan is, I follow, r/fantasy on Reddit and a couple fantasy book things on other social media things. And anytime someone brings up their favorite siege, Capistan is always like the top comment
Yeah, yeah.
because it is, I think it's one of the most overwhelming sequences in literature that I've ever read. Like you think it's gonna go one way, and then it just starts you off with it Kovian in the middle of the street, and a three-tiered wall of bodies is falling down on top of him, and he's
Dude,
swinging his sword, and his horse is chomping into faces, and his gray swords go down, and then they rise out of the mound of bodies like zombies, it's, and then it
It's
doesn't,
dude.
gnarly.
and then it doesn't stop because it Kovian gets healed, and then Brucalion gets his summons, and he's like, well, we got to do this, so there's a crime for Itkovian to avenge, and he goes out like one of the most underrated badasses ever.
Brucalion, you mentioned Mora's favorite character earlier in off camera. Brucalion's probably in the top three. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, she fucking loves that guy. So I'm in her stead. I'm going, I'm going to be the Brucalion sim today. I fucking love Brucalion, dude. He's the fucking coolest.
That was just the gnarliest scene I remember reading. The whole entire, I think we did all four of those chapters, was it? Like at the same time,
Damn.
more or less?
We um
Three or four chapters?
what chapter is the Siege of Capistan?
Like 15,
I was gonna
16.
say 15 to 17, I think is what it covers.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we did all of it in one thing.
because you had mentioned you're like, these are some of my favorite chapters ever. And as soon as we finished and started recording, I was like, yeah, no, those were really good
Okay, yeah.
chapters. Because like I've never read a series or anything where it was that much of like everything is going wrong that can go wrong. Like you think the great swords are gonna make their last stand and maybe all collapse, but no, they voluntarily like someone's breaking the law, we'll go do it so that it's completed and then he can be avenged. Like just so many different things that happen that you're like, I did not see that coming. And then you got Boschling, Corporal Roach in their mansion with their undead army surrounding them so they don't have to deal with anything. And then them trying to go get Ananaster and then just getting wrecked by the mages over there. There's like just so many random strange things that happen through the course of it. They're like, this is intense.
think I think Cabistan is best summarized by one of Itkovian's arguably best quotes. Rokalian asked for 6 weeks. I gave him 3 days.
Yep.
And in those 3 days, the body count is, I don't want to say massive. It's like something beyond massive. It's insane. It's like, what the fuck?
It's
How
gotta
many
be close.
bodies do you have to send?
Yeah, it's gotta be in the hundred, above 100,000.
Probably easily, yeah. It's nuts. It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, that just reminded me of because Brucelian is asking him for 6 weeks, and Kovian's like, that is fucking impossible. That other city that lasted for 3 weeks had better walls, better trained defenders, more supplies, more food, more notice. We've got nothing.
Yep.
He's like, well, do what you can. And then we see
boy.
the Barghast like, yeah, we wouldn't want to mess with you.
Yeah, the Barghast are walking through the city, and in awe at what the Grey Swords did. Like they kept Kovian's promise that they didn't let the Panions get into the city without spilling blood
Mhm.
across every cobblestone.
Yeah. No, the gray swords are insane. They did a real
Yeah.
number on that, which was actually, I mean, as tragic as the siege was, it was really impressive. What like just like a different concept I feel like of a mercenary group was able to do.
Hmm.
Like it kind of threw me off because I mean, the more I thought about it, I was like, they literally saw the guy that was paying them dead, like he was dead. So they could have just been like, we're
Well,
out.
yeah.
We're not getting paid, but no, they stuck around. They kept fighting until it was over. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh boy.
Uh,
Another neat detail, which I think I should keep
yeah.
you I don't want to say you should keep in mind, but it's a neat detail, like world building wise, is that the Grey Swords recruit primarily from Kappan women because they're not allowed to
Yes.
join like the military ranks, the elite military ranks. So like, okay, well, if you don't mind, we're gonna have those.
Uh-huh.
So by the end of Kabistan, like 70-80% of the Grey Swords are basically women, which is,
Yep.
I mean, where else do you see that shit?
Yeah, well, I think even when they're writing out to the Barghest after the siege, Kovian and the two women that he recruits and basically forces into their new roles, he's like, so it's going to be you two women and then the male mortal sword. And that's a pretty good reflection of the ratio of genders in our group now,
Yep. Yep.
2 to 1. So, um, and then we can't talk about Capistan without talking about Gruntle, because Gruntle goes,
Oh boy.
yes, Gruntle goes insane. And we talked about this a bit. I never know how to talk about the difficult things in Malazan because part of me wants to say I like it, but it's horrible to say that I like it. But
Yeah.
I think Erickson handled what happened to Stani really well and better than many an author that I've come across because
Hmm.
it I know that it's gotten the accusation of like fridging the female character before. Um, yeah. See,
We're
I get
walking on coals here. This is gonna
yes,
be
we
not
are
an easy
walking on
discussion.
coals. It felt like this talking about Fellicin sometimes too, but I enjoy it because uh, there there I go again, fucking myself over with my words. I think it's handled well because Gruntle shows such immediate compassion and love to Stani and like doesn't expect anything of her. And even then, Gruntle is so reluctant to go join the battle. He just wants to stay by his friend's side and take care of her. And
Hmm.
she's the one that pushes him out the door, like, no, you go kill those motherfuckers.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, that I remember trying to think of some things and I was looking through a few notes I'd made. That was one of them. Just how Gruntle's like kind of arc himself as a character, I thought was really interesting and cool to see. Like even through the somewhat, I guess, controversial tragic events of Stani and his reaction. It was just cool to see though, like how he just accepted kind of what comes to him and tries to move forward with it.
Hmm.
Because I mean, we see at the very end, he like as hesitant and non-willing as he was to accept the fact that he was a mortal sword. When finally one of his group was like, you know, a lot of people died for you, right? He's like, okay, I guess this is like an important thing. I should try and take it with a little more seriousness and respect. So I think it was a cool thing to see, especially to see him finally get out of that drunk, depressed state for losing one of his friends, and then like kind of just chilling there through the siege until finally he sees one of his other friends get, you know, abused and harassed, and then he's like, okay, maybe I should step in and do something with myself instead of just feeling sorry for myself. So I thought he
Hmm.
was actually really cool. Complex, controversial story arc, I guess you could say, but
It is, yeah. Um, oh boy, how do I approach this? I definitely see where people are coming from
Yes.
because in many ways, Stony doesn't get to cope with her trauma in this book. She is that happens, and then just like Grundle going on a fucking rampage for 400 pages. Okay, now Grundle's arc and Stony's arc are both very much in the beginning because this is a new beginning for both of them. Obviously, Grundle's immortal sword, Stony got not good things, and Memories of Life already has a lot of things going for it. So I don't know to how much extent it would have been viable to fully at least show and somewhat explore what happens to these two characters. Because Gruntle isn't okay.
No.
The fact that he killed a whole bunch of dudes doesn't suddenly make him feel better. Like, oh yeah, now after I killed like 4 fucking thousand people, I feel a lot better. No, he's not okay. He's not gonna be okay because he's not particularly willing to be a mortal sword. Yeah, he gets pressured in. Well, it's not like pressured. He gets chosen, and he doesn't have a say in the whole thing. And then his friend dies, and his other friend gets abused horribly. And like, the fuck am I doing? What
Yeah.
am I doing? What am
And
I here
then
to do?
and then he loses his other friend that he made during the book at Covey and at the end of the book. And he's like, well, fuck me, I guess.
Yeah. So then what? After the Panions fall, what's Gruntle to do? That's a question for another time because the book ends when the Panion ends, so it's a bit
Yes.
like presumptuous, but he's not okay. And I think the fact that this seems to be a bit glossed over in the discussion of like it was Stony Fridge is that they're both not okay. Gruntle isn't like, oh yeah, whatever, this happened. I guess I'm gonna go kill some fools now. He is shook and he is not coping well. He wasn't coping well before with Harlow when he got like shit faced. He's not coping well by killing a whole bunch of fools for a god which he doesn't worship. And he's not going to be okay unless something fundamentally changes. Like, say, Drake dumps him, but that's probably not gonna happen. Um, because Drake's a dick. That's another point that comes up a lot in this book. But
Yes.
I'm getting ahead of myself. But it's it's complicated because on the one hand, I would like to have seen more, at least of Stony. On the other hand, it's still early and there's more to be had. And I think ultimately, as a whole, it's treated very well. So I understand why people are mad. I get it. But I also think it's handled about as well as it could have been within the text without making anything too explicit. Like saying, oh yeah, this guy, he's totally cool after killing like a whole bunch of fools because he turned to a massive tiger, you see? Yeah, that's cool. Wasn't that cool? Like, yeah, it's cool, but he's not fine. Anyway, we're gonna put the Gruntle issue aside because it's quite contentious. Let's put it that way. But before we leave,
Yes.
I want to talk about Buke, who is arguably the only
Yes.
person to get a happy ending from that group.
Oh yeah. I love Buke's story so much.
I think it's a really good microcosm. I'm hogging the spotlight. I'm sorry. Uh, it's a really good microcosm of the book as a whole. It's like he was bound to something, and when he's finally given a choice, when he's finally able to choose something of his own free will, that's when he finally feels free, right? Because he's no longer bound to some idea of his failure or war because of duty or honor or any of that self-serving bullshit that leads to people killing each other. He finally has a choice and he finally is offered freedom and he doesn't regret taking it. He doesn't look back. And I think that takes balls. And I like Buke. I think his story is beautiful. I don't know how Matt felt about it because on a first read, it's a bit like, oh yeah, well that happened.
That's kind of exactly how I
Yeah,
felt. Like, because
I know
I
that's how
know
I felt.
Nate brought up some things, and I was like, okay, yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah. I'm
happened.
like,
Oh,
that was cool.
yeah. That during that chapter where Buke makes the decision to fly away, it's just beautiful writing. And I mentioned to Matt that it got me a little teary-eyed, and he was like, really? I was like,
Yeah.
yes, I love Buke so much.
It's like that's just I feel like one of the things you don't notice until it's like kind of your second time through and you have like the bigger picture because like I do remember reading that and I was like, oh, Buke's gone. He flew away. Good for him. But
Goodbye.
I was like, that's all
See
right.
ya.
What's next?
See you want
Like
to see
what's
you.
like and so
Can we go
because
back to the siege now?
that's exactly I'm like,
Like,
what's the aftermath? Like what's going on? Yeah, Buke left. That's him. Goodbye, Buke. But what are we doing now? Like what's the next thing happening? And I think it's just because like that's all you're thinking about. You're thinking about the story. Like this is the big draw, like the magnet of ideas where you're just like, okay, like let me figure this out, what's going on here in the city. And so I think the second time, the more you read it, then you're like picking out all the details, the minor character arcs, because you're like, okay, I know this has happened, how it resolves, why was this here, why was this included, things like that.
yep.
But nope, I thought that was funny because I was like, that's exactly how I felt.
I
Yeah.
know how I felt. So yeah, it's
A little tip from Malazan, if there's ever a small thing or like a small character arc or something that you're like, why did Erickson include that? It's probably thematic more than it is story driven or character
that
driven.
or it's comic relief like Balka and Corbel. It's
Yes.
one of the two.
Those two are in Memories of Ice to be like, hey, guess what? We have our own novellas. Come read those.
It's like a meta way of saying, "Hey, look at what we got. We got something to sell you. Come read our stories."
Yep.
Speaking of the two of the creepiest characters I've ever read, and Capistan bringing it all together. Uh, Quickben in this book is really fun.
Yeah, I think Memories is one of like a lot of characters come together into their own, like Quickpen, Ganos,
Yeah,
um,
Whiskey Jack even.
Whiskey Jack especially. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice in that regard. Take it away.
Yeah,
Tell me all about Quickpen.
Quickben. First off, I think that scene with him sneaking into the mansion is just
Mhm.
delightful and really fun to read. And it finally, it as a the first time reading it, it finally gave me what I wanted as a reader, which is like, let's see what it looks like when a mage uses their Warren.
God bless.
And it's really fun. And then you find out that Quickben knows the demon Warren that Talamandus doesn't know at all, and he's able to like without effort and without even like being all that scared or stressed about it, free the demon and escape it and escape the undead servants. And of course, then at the end of the book, you get Quickben taking on an entire army by himself, and then you realize, oh, is Quick much more and more badass than I thought he was. Um, I don't know if he doesn't have like a huge arc necessarily because he kind of stays the same
He's
emotionally
at the
and
peak. Yeah, yeah.
yeah throughout, but just the ego of him also throughout the book being like, I am going to solve the ending of the world
I'm going
by
to save
myself,
Vern by myself.
and I'm
I
only going to
promise.
include Gnos when he talks to me about it because I have to kind of bring the Master of the Deck in on this plan. But I'm going to do it myself because I like taking on the gods.
I mean, yeah, he does pull Hood by the shirt and like, listen here, you motherfucker. You're gonna let
Yeah.
my puppet go. So yeah. And he
He's
puts
like,
Calor in a hole.
And he drops Calor in a hole. And he
Boy.
has some very sympathetic moments as well at the end of the book when he and Piran are kind of sad that they missed the funeral, and he just turns to Gnos and goes, "Draw Moonspawn, let's go." And it's very clear that even though he tries to portray himself as the aloof, badass, sneaky mage, he cares deeply. And when he leaves that pebble in Moonspawn so that he can go visit later with Kalam and Fiddler, it's like, oh, he does care.
No. Yeah.
he has a heart.
He has a heart. There's just 12 souls competing for that heart. Speaking of,
12
we get
souls
that
that we know
reveal
of.
in the book as well.
Yeah.
Oh, that was
How
legendary.
how the bridge burners started, and I forgot that was this book.
There's a lot of shit in this book.
Yes,
That's way back in chapter 8, I think. So yeah.
that's right, because that's the one we recorded with Derek and Justin.
It's quite a while ago.
Yeah.
And I'm going to point out that it's let's just say it's self-aggrandizing because it's Whiskey Jack talking about how his unit fucks and how awesome it is and how great they are and how they track down these guys through the
True.
desert like that no one else can cross and like everyone else has died and you're like we thought you were gonna die but here you are. Okay, buddy, calm the fuck down.
This is
But no,
one moment.
otherwise I mean, it is the kind of legend that you would expect a bridge burner to have, right? After like these two books. It's exactly what you were expecting. Well, not exactly, but it makes sense with the way they've been portrayed so far. It's like, yeah, that's how they were built. That's what the bridge burners were. You know, they burned the bridges to their pasts, whatever. They're cool. They're unequivocally cool. Even if they're a bit backstabby, cutthroat assholes at times. But
Yes.
yeah. We haven't talked about like One Arms Host at all, have we? No. Oh boy.
No, I don't think so. There's a lot of characters there. Of course, you've got Matt's favorite Whiskey Jack,
We're gonna go on
who
for a while.
yes, we are. I started to make a list of like characters I wanted to talk about, and I very quickly got like 12 or 15 characters written down.
Yeah.
'Cause there's like you say, there's a lot of shit in this book, but we can jump to Whiskey Jack, because he's the primary member of One Arms Host in this book,
Yep.
unless Gnos is that, but we can talk about Whiskey Jack first.
Sure.
Um, Whiskey Jack has a great story in this book. He and Corlat have the best romance of the series so far. It
Mhm.
Oh, I mean, there's no other to compete, honestly. Deadhouse Gates had nothing.
I take offense that you're forgetting Kalama Minala, who
No,
I'm
I'm not
quite
forgetting
partial
them.
to.
I
I'm
am
quite
saying
partial to them, excuse you. That uh,
it yeah, we may have made fun of that one a couple
a
of
lot,
times throughout
I think
reading this book
yeah.
because that one boils down to he's a badass, she's a badass. Let's get together.
basically.
Yeah,
Whereas this
that's
is
fair.
like, you're cool. Yeah, you're cool too. I like you. I like you too.
And then Corlat straight up and outside of her tent one night is like, "Do you want to come in and bang?" And he's like, "Yeah, let's do it."
He's like,
Oh
don't
dear.
talk. I don't want to have the long conversation.
But other than that, you really fully see how cool and how good of a leader Whiskey Jack is. You get so many examples of it throughout the books of I think back to that conversation where he goes to talk to the two Marines that are guarding Silver Fox and like he learns how well they can fight and he's like, "Okay, so how many brothers did you have?" and then shows them the scars left by his sister biting him on the arm and
Which
just
we're not gonna talk
immediately
about. Let's not talk about what that does to the timeline. Let's not worry about it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that will come up later.
Don't worry about it, Matt. It's fine. Don't worry. Yeah, it's 10-year difference. Big deal. No worries.
Nothing. Yeah, no
I'm
difference.
so okay. Yeah, please
Um
carry on.
yeah. What we're saying is that the timeline is impossible to nail
It's
down.
not. It's not working out.
Uh, but Whiskey Jack immediately relates to those sisters on like a human level where
Mhm.
he's able to drop the facade of being their commander for a second and just connect to them as a person. And then he
Mhm.
writes back to Silver Fox and she's like, "You don't realize how effortlessly you like win people over, do you? There's a reason Lysine bumped you down all the way to Sergeant because she knew that if she gave you any modicum of real power, you would
I'm not
like
speaking.
if Lysine gave him any modicum of real power, I feel like there would have been a rebellion with Whiskey Jack as a figurehead without him even wanting it.
Does that sound
Like,
familiar? Oh, that's it. I'm sorry.
yeah, I mean, Whiskey Jack is already a legend and he hasn't been doing much for the last few years. And if he was, yeah, I mean, already Dujack's like, you realize you're more important to this army than I am, right? Like you're the real leader of this army, and Whiskey Jack can't really deny it because it's true.
Yeah.
Well, what I think as well is what's crazy is Andamander Rake. The guy who has maybe one or two friends is like, I like this guy. He's cool.
Yeah. He's neat. Yeah.
And then they go, by the river and have a drink together,
As one does.
as they do, and just chat about life and things.
Oh, nice. Why must like Erickson hate us and ruin good things?
I know.
Yeah, and even Corlat can't believe that Whiskey Jack and Rick have had what, maybe five conversations, like five sit down chats, and and like they're friends now. And it took him and Caladan Brood, who, to be fair, Caladan Brood is very opposite of Rake, so I understand why it took a bit longer. But
Yeah.
it took them centuries to develop a real friendship.
Mm.
And then I don't know. Erickson just builds up Whiskey Jack so much so that he could tear your heart out at the end of the book.
Oh yeah.
It's so sad.
This is how you end up with like a legion of like fuck Calor people. This is what
Yes.
this book does.
He's the worst.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna say anything. One sec.
No, Lee has thoughts on Calor.
Sorry. Okay. It's gonna take some while to refocus. No matter.
We're not recording the video anyways, so
Yeah, okay. Well, that's a mix. Sorry. Don't I like there's a button here to mute and I just forgot about it, so I just did the next best thing, which is reduce the gain as much as possible. Anyway, please continue. We were talking about like yeah, how this book breeds Calor haters, which is I
yes.
guess fair. I'm not gonna dispute that openly.
Yes. Lee has thoughts on Calor that he cannot share here.
Oh no. We'll
Yeah.
have to wait.
Um, funnily enough, since we brought up AP, like on again, like the pre thing, he has made an abundance of videos on the prologue of Memories of Ice talking about the different angles, which is ludicrous to me because how do you talk about that without spoiling fucking everything? But yeah. Am I hijacking the conversation here to talk about the prologues? I think I'm hijacking the conversation to talk about prologues because I
We
love
can talk
both
about the
prologues.
prologues.
Like
Just
we're like split between Animander Rake, which is awesome, and the prologues, which are awesome. Like, do you see this? Is what this book does to me? I'm sorry.
yeah,
Oh
that's
boy.
the thing. That's the thing with this book is there's so much in it, but everything is done so well that you want to talk about
I
everything.
know. I know. Oh
I mean,
boy.
we can jump to the prologues because the prologues was probably the best place to start in the beginning, and we just
You
started
would
somewhere
think.
completely different.
You would think. Um, so the prologues. There's two, which is different from I think it's different from both past books, right?
Yeah,
Fairly
because
sure.
Gardens is just
Yeah, Gardens
Gano's on the
Canoes and
parapet with
yeah,
Whiskey
okay.
Jack, and then Deadhouse Gates is just Fellison in the chain.
Right. So I'm going to save the theorizing for a more spoiler friendly, I suppose, pod because this is going to be spoiler hell if I start going, and I'm just gonna not say anything that I shouldn't. In case it's not abundantly obvious, these spoilers are quite important, at least from like in hindsight, they're important. Um, but in both cases, I think there's a case to be made that they reflect the themes of the book very well. More so the first one, weirdly enough. Like I love the second prologue. Calor is in that prologue is um but I think the first prologue is so much more important to the book as a whole. Obviously because it sets up the main antagonist,
Yes.
but also because like the thematic work done is very like I mean the conversation between Pran and Kivalavar is enough to like tear your heart out because he's like, "Oh, I saved them." No, you fucking didn't. No, you didn't. You thought you were being thought you were being good. Thought you were being kind, compassionate. How far does your compassion reach? Are you gonna take this place? No. So stop
No,
crying.
obviously
Don't
not.
bullshit
Yeah.
me. And like that contrasts so nicely to Kovian, which we're gonna talk about way later. Not right now. I can't go into this right now. Sorry. Uh, um, and it also ties into theme like redemption because Kilava seeks redemption for what she did. Uh, to what extent does compassion seek? Again, I'm not gonna bring up Govian. I'm sorry. Uh, what can be excused? To what degree? Because I mean, the seer does some horrible shit, and can that be excused by the things he went through as a kid? Are the Eye Masters terrible? Uh, um, are the Dragon terrible? Like Raised, who is terrible? A lot of questions. This prologue has a lot of questions, and I'm not gonna answer them because I'm kind of like that, where I don't want to like offer answers because I have opinions, not answers. So I ask you, friends, what do you think about Kilava, about Panion, who's a name apparently? Because I haven't tuned in. Unfortunately, I'm outing myself here. I haven't tuned into your prologue discussion to know.
No,
So,
that's fine. Um, First off, I just want to say to tease Matt a little bit, but Lee, I think I've I don't know why it took me this long, but I see certain similarities between Panion in this book and a certain other character that appears later on that and I think you know exactly who I'm talking about. I have never thought of that before, but that's great. Anyways, um yeah. Matt, what did you think of the prologues? I know it's been like 3 months since we read it, but
Yeah, those epilogues were great.
that
The
no,
that that's become a joke is mixing up
uh
prologue, epigraph, and epilogue on our
Jeez,
podcast.
I can't remember my words sometimes. I mean just in terms of like general like first time, I thought it was pretty cool just to see two different prologues for one,
Mhm,
just to like see two perspectives of two different characters and just like general things. Because I think the big thing about that I really liked about Memories of Ice is just how much it builds off a lot of characters that were pointed out in Gardens of the Moon and then just
mhm,
adds to who they are and reveals more who they are. So it's nice just to see, I think just in general, more of the background history, especially like on Calor, where he came from, Draconis and the others, Cruel, like just everyone in like kind of their starting point that got them to where they are. So it's just
mhm,
nice to have that background and then how that plays as like an underlining like driving point throughout the whole thing. Because the one thing I really noticed about Memories of Ice is just the everyone's background and everyone's history they all have their own objectives, and it's just a matter of what objective is stronger, and will like kind of push the other one to like coalesce into one great messed up ending of like where no one really expected it to happen. I mean, unless you're Quick Ben, who seems to know the plan all along of what's actually going to be happening.
He would tell you that.
But no, and then just I mean, learning about the Jagu and just seeing that perspective of like what they were doing to them, the Tlanomass, and just that how much they were hunting them to the point of literal extinction. Like they find a mom with their two kids, which I feel like isn't like that's probably not the coolest thing to do. But like then again, I don't feel like I know enough to like know all the sides and arguments and things. But it was just interesting to see that and then learn about a little bit about Warrens, which I mean always are a weird, fascinating, abstract idea for me, and how that they threw in a couple of kids who then had to suffer for quite a while because apparently the Warren was broken. There was a rent. So I don't know. The
Yes.
prologues were really cool, and I think it just set up a lot of good background information and ideas and themes that like you can kind of slowly reflect back on and think about. But that's kind of what I thought.
Yeah. Matt, just so you know, Raffo with the promise of an answer for where the rent came from.
Oh, good to know.
I think so.
I was hoping.
I
With the promise of a
yes.
theory.
I think we get. See, I'm not sure if it's like named, but I think it's pretty explicit.
Yeah.
But like way later, like book 9, which
Yeah.
Okay.
Way,
I guess I spoiled it.
uh,
It's later.
yes.
Hey, I don't
but-
mind at least knowing what book it's in, so then I'm not sitting on like the edge of my seat every book, like, is it gonna happen this time?
Yeah.
But
I really like the prologues as well. Nowhere else have I seen where you get a prologue with events where you get events like 10,000 years before the series that impact the story, let alone 200,000 years that directly impact the story that's going on in the book. And it's just really well done how Erickson. It's really well done how Erickson does it. That's what I was gonna say. That's a sentence that came out of my mouth. But the Cowlor stuff obviously is great. It's metal as hell, him sitting on a throne made of bones and staring at these gods and bragging to them and all that. But then you also get the quieter moments of I really like the beginning of the book with Pranchol and his chief like looking at the throat. You see the animals frozen in the mud, and you find out later that this probably happened a while ago. Symbolism. The Talani are also frozen.
Yeah.
And I have a theory because at the beginning it has those Pranchols like, oh, there are tracks frozen in the mud of this A that lost the family and was the only one left alive and then had to go off on its own. I think that A is Baeljag. I don't know if that's ever been confirmed before, but Envy mentions that Baeljag was a wandering lost until Kroll found her.
That's very fair. It would make sense, yeah.
But yeah, it's really well done. It sets up the themes of motherhood that run throughout the book as well, with Kalava having just lost her own child and finding the Jagu and her children and them having that instinctive understanding of the mother trusting Kalava, and then Kalava inadvertently betrays that trust by sending them into a horrible place, but still tries to do the right thing because of what she's just lost.
Yeah, which begs the question, what is that worth?
Yeah.
What is it worth to try to do the right thing when all options are objectively bad? Like on the one hand, you have death. On the other hand, you have eternal suffering with the potential of one day getting out. Like, which option's better? Especially if the children don't get a choice. And that's an answer which the book does not provide because the book's a piece of shit. So you'll have to choose for yourself.
Well, and then at the end of the book, we also see that Panion does not give a shit what Kalava's intentions are.
Yeah.
He just knows what she subjected him to. And that's like he says they're not ready quite to forgive each other because Panion also caused Tool, her brother, a lot of pain by killing Talk. Or by doing what he did to Talk. So they kind of just say, well, we're not ready to forgive each other, but let's walk away and work on ourselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's all you can do.
Oh boy. I'm going to mention one last thing about the prologue because anything else I say can and will be considered spoilers. It's interesting to note that the Imas hunting down a dragon mother and her two children is came to be known in history as the 33rd Jagged War, which begs the question, what were the other 32 like? How many Jagged were like hunted down by bands of Imas and just slain out of hand because they existed? Like, say, that family in like Vathar, I think it was in the House Gates, which
Oh yeah, the one where the kid was
list.
pinned underneath the stone.
Yep, yep.
Yep.
You know, that thumbs up again, needless to say. Where next? I think we left Amanda Rake a bit hanging, right? And I'm pretty sure you guys have a lot more to tell me about Rake and his escapades in this book.
Oh, Matt, every time Rake came up, Matt loved Animander Rake even more.
He is just he got better every single scene. Because like what was it? He was an atmosphere or something that descended on the meeting. I was like, that is rather cool.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I have it in my, because last time I read the series before this, I made a quote board for every book, and I have that written down somewhere.
I mean, Rake descends, and you're like, "Am I pregnant now?" That's that's the vibe. Oh boy, what to say about
Yeah.
Rake? What's not to say? Yeah.
This is one of the only characters where I feel like an over-the-top description like this actually does it, like actually works. This is a great summary of him. Rake was an atmosphere, a heart-thudding, terror-threaded presence no one could ignore, much less escape. Violence, antiquity, somber pathos, and darkest horror. The son of darkness was a gelid eddy in immortality's current, and the Maib could feel crawling beneath her skin every Rivi spirit awakened in.
In any other book, that would sound so incredibly fucking edgy as like you're gonna cut yourself. Here, seamless. You didn't
Oh,
even
yeah.
notice.
It works. And then like just like he has that presence, but then like we mentioned a bit earlier, he just, sits down, has a chat
A
with
drink.
Whiskey Jack.
Yeah.
They go by the river and they're just talking. And then like later on near the end with the bridge burners, when Picker's like, yeah, we're losers. He's like, well, I'd be honored to walk in your presence nonetheless. As we go to the meeting, it's like and then like he completely just like roasts Lady Envy. Like, yeah, what did you do when I was fighting your dad? Nothing. Remember, you were off to the side. So like just all the different facets of his character I love, where I'm like, he knows how to be respectful and like give the time needed, but then at the same time he knows how to, descend as a dragon on an army.
Yeah.
He does that too.
He does that too. He does everything. One of my favorite like bookend things of this book, it's a small little detail, but at the beginning of the book, Whiskey Jack pulls Piranha aside and is like, whatever you do not tell Animander Rake that you walked within Dragnapur and escaped, because I have a feeling he trusts that sword. He knows what it does. He doesn't want anyone to do that. He might like try to kill you. And then at the end of the book, in the conversation with Envy, she's like, oh, do I have something to tell you? And he's like, oh yeah, Gnos Piran, the master of the deck, walked within my sword and escaped and let two Hounds of Shadow go into darkness. Yeah, I know.
That's fine. That's cool.
I don't care. Yeah. I'm
He's
shocked
like-
it's taken Draconis this long to try to escape.
I'm not speaking. I'm just gonna shut up. No, yeah. Oh boy. Jesus, what next?
Well, I just think as well, like the whole Hounds of Shadow, like makes me think like when he did kill him with the sword, he probably wasn't too worried because maybe he knew something. Like he's like, they'll just get out. Like, because he's probably thinking they're Hounds of Shadow. He's like, I'm just doing it to make a statement. They're fine. They're fine.
Arguably, yeah. I think
He's like, I think as well, he's just like, I don't care that you're Shadow Throne and you're like the assassin of Shadow. He's like, my mom is darkness. You guys are a child of like the grand kid of darkness. He's like, don't even. He's like, you haven't been around nearly as long as I have.
hey, who's a school? Okay, yeah. I have opinions on Anomander, which are not pertinent to this discussion, but the bottom line is pretty much always he's just fucking cool, and that's all there is to him.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yep.
You could say a lot of things about Rick, but it can be summarized as he's just fucking cool. Like, he's nice to read about. He feels good to read about. He's an atmosphere. So, yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah,
We're
you
gonna get to the
understand.
depressing parts now.
Yeah.
Go on.
Just one last thing about Rake. You understand why Erickson made the decision not to go into his head. Like
God
characters
bless.
like him and Brood, you feel like I can't understand them. Calor's a bit
Mhm.
different because Calor is just a long-lived
Dude,
human-ish
he's a
person.
dude.
Yeah, he's a dude. But Rake, it's like, how does that man think? And it's kind of an impossible question to answer because not only is he badass as hell, but he also knows how to connect with people, and he never
Mhm.
makes like, unless he's trying to, he doesn't make people feel smaller than him. Like there are moments in this book where he's talking to Calor and he's like, Calor, you shut up and sit down. I'm talking. But there are other moments like when he's talking to the bridge burners that he's like, oh yeah, you guys are fucking awesome. Let me walk beside you because I like soldiers and you guys made a bunch of sacrifices today and I know what that's like.
And I'm gonna put all your homies in Moonspawn since it's going down anyways. We're gonna make that, their resting place. And then I will personally put magic over it. Like, so
No
cool.
notes. No notes.
Yeah, and then Orphantal, bring me Calor because I want to kill him with Dragnapur.
Yeah.
Um,
I I don't know if
you
that'll ever happen, but I just hope it does. That's the only thing I hope now.
you can definitely tell that his perception, shall we say, of Calor is like he probably knows what Calor did and he doesn't give a shit. It's like whatever, dude. Just some guy. Once that you like killed 7 million, I don't care. Probably killed more. Who cares?
Yeah, one of my favorite like random things to think about in Malazan is like, oh, if Rake and Calor each killed like one person a year, they'd have like some of the highest body counts in all of fiction.
Yep. Oh boy. That's fun to think about. Right.
I do have to say, Picker stood out a lot for me in this book more than
hmm
other times that I've read it.
hmm
Um, which I don't know why she hasn't before because we get quite a few like sections from her head.
Yep.
But she's the soldier that's been underutilized for how good she is for a while, and Prawn finally recognizes it and says, "Okay, you're lieutenant now. Ansie's the sergeant, but Ansie has to stay as the sergeant because Ansie can't do anything more than that." But yeah, Prawn recognizes what he has in Picker, and she does the best with what she has, and still loses a lot, and that kind of devastates her because it would anyone. But I don't know. She got a lot of empathy from me in this book, and her and Blend's relationship is just
Yep.
chef's kiss.
Absolutely. I have to give a shout out to my boy Mallet, who is
Oh yeah.
insane in this book. It's like just picture you're some guy whose magic is like your main tool they use to heal is just not working. It's killing you. And you're like, my guy's gonna die. Like, you're gonna die. I don't care. I'm saving this motherfucker. But you're gonna die. I don't care. I do not care. And goddamn, Mallet, he was fully prepared to die. He did not know something was gonna save him,
Yep.
which came at an enormous cost in the first place, but he didn't know that. He just like went in, like, oh yeah, whatever. I might die. That's fine, that's cool. I need to fix him because if I don't fix him, we're all gonna die.
Always a fair exchange.
Yep. Which brings us to Trance, who is dead at the end of this book. God damn it. Why do all the good characters die? Uh Trance is one of those guys who you're like, how did he end up with these guys? And you don't get an answer to
Exactly.
that.
hmm
Like, why is this guy here? Who the fuck is this guy?
Wait, somehow
And
he's like a critical piece to the relationship between the Barghast and the Bridge Burners. Where did he come from again?
And he's like the last survivor of his tribe, which is why he's able to take the role as a chief
yep.
of the Bridge Burners.
And you can tell
And
like Humbrol is like, is this guy bullshitting me or is he genuine? And if he's genuine, do I let this happen? You can tell that there's some internal politicking because you can never tell how honest he is, like how honest Trance is. Like, yeah, he has tattoos. He might just look nice in tattoos, like I don't know, Haboric does. I don't know. Maybe it's God sent. Maybe it's he thought he looked cool. Maybe he's got a fucking full body sleeve. Who knows? He says it's from his tribe, which goes on like a really long time ago, and that's cool. But
Mhm.
Can you trust him? And I think the answer for the Barghast is it doesn't matter if we can trust him because he can be beneficial for both of us. Sorry, this is gonna happen. Probably not gonna happen again.
No worries.
Yeah, France, right? So you can tell there's some internal politicking where they're like, do we trust this guy? Do we not trust this guy? Can we trust this guy? Does it matter? Probably not, because what's the option for the Barghast, right? Trots loses, we kill the bridge burners, we take Coral or other Capistan, we take our stuff, we're happy. Trots wins, Trots is the new chief, we take Capistan, we dump them at Capistan, we're happy. And one thing I find fascinating and bring up for no good reason at all is Memories of Ice, what with it, the IMOS and like the Deniskowry and the Barghast brings out into a lot of weird customs and cultural things which make sense for the culture, but you're like, why is this a thing? Why are they killing each other like in honor duels, like right before a celebration?
And
Why
then
are there
stopping the
cannibals?
caravan as they travel down the continent to
like-
have
like,
50
can
duels a
you-
day.
And you're not. So how do we view the Barghast? Are they just self-serving assholes, or are they genuinely honor-bound? Because, well, he won. He's the clan leader now. We should help him. I'm not gonna tell you. You guys are gonna have to tell me.
As with many things in Malazan, I think it can be both. That they
That's fair.
they are genuinely honor bound, but they're also very like Humble Tar is also doing this. He makes it clear at least at the beginning, he's doing this entirely for his own reasons because he wants to go get
Mhm.
the remains of their gods, so that
Yep.
in a way you can argue so that he can have power, so that he can be the chief of all chiefs and lead the entire Barghest people.
Exactly.
But I think it's also genuine on his part that he wants them to have their gods back. And then when I think once they get to Capistan and see what happens, like he doesn't have to continue on with the army after that. He's reached the end of his deal with the Malazans.
Yep.
But he sees what happened to Capistan and then decides, you know what, this is a bad thing that's going on. Let's go help.
Yep. Matt?
They were confusing for me, not gonna lie. Like when we first
Excellent.
open up and they were like, all right, and they're just sitting there watching guys basically just fight, just kind of for the sake of fighting, I feel like. Just to be like, we're better than you. I killed your guy. You challenged my honor.
It's a huge dick measuring contest, is what it is.
It's
It
like
is. It is.
it to me, it's just kind of like I feel like that's why they needed to rescue their gods because we see them, what was it, Quick Ben talking with the spirits, and they're like, they haven't progressed. They've lost the knowledge that we used to have. Like the weapons they had in those canoes and just the engineering and the magic behind all of them was insane and it's been lost. And now all they do is just fight each other. They're like, our clan's better than your clan. I'm gonna fight you to prove it. It's like that doesn't get you anywhere. That just means they have one guy who's dead. It was kind of the same thing I thought when I mean it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense to me when Trotz had to fight Humbraltor's son to the death. I was like,
As you
why?
do.
I'm like, why? Why does this prove anything? Now you're down a son, and like it just proves like what? Like he's able to fight. Like I don't know. Like I think Nate made a good point. Like Umbrator was like, all right, we'll go with you guys because this is a really horrible thing that's happening now that they see the reality of it. So I feel like they understand some things, but there's a lot of like ancient pride, I guess you could say, that they're holding on to that they need to let go of,
Absolutely.
which is like in a kinder way saying they're honor bound to defend their honor when it's really just them being like, no, we're just better than you. That's,
Yeah.
I don't know, that's kind of how I viewed it.
And speaking of ancient pride,
Put that all in a box and just keep it in mind in case it
Yeah.
becomes important later.
speaking of ancient pride, I do see some similarities between the Barghast, like their weird like cultural racism against the Moranth for reasons that are unclear to anybody. Like the Barghast have their
God.
version, Twist tells Gano's their version, but who's right? There's a lot of similarities between that and the Talon Imass and the Jagut, I feel like, where like the Barghast are like, yeah, they took in those demon people, and the Taisti are like, yeah, we took in the demon people and they taught us a lot.
We make fucking bombs, dude. Look at us. Who
Yeah,
cares?
we have bombs that we've given to you, and we've changed the landscape of war in this world forever and made it arguably a lot worse than it was.
We literally fly
Hooray!
on creatures.
Yeah,
We conduct
and
aerial raids.
yeah, we make bombing runs on coral.
Oh boy, joy of joys. We're
Uh-huh. But
we're such good people, aren't we?
uh-huh. And then with the Vargas as well, you get that one throwaway line from the who is it? It's one of the masked council ladies. It's like, I've always thought that the I think she says the Trell, the Bargas, and the Toblikai are all descended from the IMAS. Like all descended from the same way. There's just little differences, and you get that thrown in there, and it's like, well, Erickson, tell me more about that right now.
Oh, he won't tell you though.
Because we see Bargas in this book, and we saw Trell in Deadhouse Gates with Mappo, and we saw Toblikai, who just goes by the name of his race in Deadhouse Gates. Do you
And of
remember who
Bellarden.
that is, Matt?
He's the one with Bellison in the end, right? The
Yep.
one that was supposed to defend the lady but didn't.
Oh,
They
yeah,
failed.
yeah, yeah, with Leoman.
Okay.
That's the best way to put it.
He
He
was
was supposed to, but didn't.
He failed at his job.
There's also mentions of Fen in like book one. There's like Bellardan, who is some denomination of whatever. I can't remember anyone else. I don't think there's anyone
I
else.
think that's it so far.
So that's nice.
Yep.
Um,
That's one thing Erickson does a lot is just gives you a little throwaway line where you're like, give me a whole book about that, please.
The amount of times I feel like I said that reading this series, I was like, hold on, hold on, hold on. You told
Well,
me what now? Where's my
see,
novella?
this is funny because there was a thread on the subreddit recently where someone said, what books would you want to see in the Malazan world? And there were like 50 comments of books that I would love to read, but that Erickson and Elsamont realistically will never have time to write all of those books or get to all of those stories. And it's like, aw,
No,
like
not
I want a whole Calor prequel trilogy
one day,
one day.
one day.
in our hearts.
Oh boy. Well, it will live in all in our hearts. But I've danced about the. I'm gonna continue actually dancing about the elephant in the room, and I'm gonna bring up Talk and Envy, who are
Oh yes.
a thing in this book.
Oh, it's a
Yes.
rather strange couple.
That's one way
I
to put it.
yes. I you could there's an argument to be made that Envy is a version of the seductress character,
Mm-hmm.
but I like her more than any other like seductress or temptress that I've read because it
Yeah.
it feels like she has genuine like feelings for Talk. Like the longer the book goes on and the more comments she makes, the more I'm like, are you really fucking with him or is this actually like you actually kind of like the dude?
She's a femme fatale that is so beyond powerful that you're like, she's only doing this because she likes it.
Yeah.
But and where does the divide end? Where does she like the fucking with people and like it becomes like fucking people? The difference is not so clear. Because other characters like that, like seductresses, have like Simtal from book one, right? They have some ulterior motive. Envy doesn't. She is
No.
like incredibly powerful. She's just doing this because she finds it fucking funny. It tickles her purple. So maybe she's being more genuine, and that adds a nice layer of humor of like, oh, so this girl can just like carve an entire empire with a flick of a finger, and it's like she's after me because I don't know, and I don't think I want to stick around to find out.
Yeah. You get so many of those little moments where Talk is like bemoaning himself like I used to be attractive, but now I'm not because of my scar and my lost eye. And Envy's like her genuine, like straight response is, I like your scar.
He's
And
like,
it's
wait a
like,
second.
but then you also get the moments where he like jokes, Talk sarcasm in this book, by the way, is
On
incredible.
point.
But you get moments of him like, well, what do you want from me? Do you want me to go stand on that hilltop and strike poses against the sunset? And she's like, oh yeah, please do.
Lest we forget, Talk is both a soldier and a claw, and he's had extensive training. He probably is buff as fuck. He's like athletic. He looks good. He's an archer. Archery is not easy. He rides
Yeah.
horses very well. The guy is jacked. He is attractive. It just doesn't think of himself that way because the eye.
It's because he's surrounded by it all the time.
That too. I mean, when you have envy to compare yourself with, it's a bit difficult to, but
That's true.
Yeah, and when your last friend that you talk to is Ganos Peron, who's also like a gorgeous man. But then you also get Tool thrown into that mix. And
who looks
talking
ugly as
Tool,
shit.
yeah, who's incredibly sarcastic. I think he
He
learns
has
it from Talk.
dry humor.
Uh
Ah, I see
Ah,
what you did.
ah.
Isn't like it's in this book where like the exchange of like I didn't know Tlani Moss were capable of humor, and like later down the line like humor. Oh, I see what you did there.
yep, yep.
God, it's
And
they're
you also
great.
get you also get Talk being like, I didn't think Talani Mask could feel anything. And then Tool is just like devastated when he has that short conversation with Kalava and she runs away again.
Oh boy, now I'm sad. God
I
damn it,
mean I mean we should all get sad thinking about Talk in this book. Holy
poor
shit.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah. No, when Talk died, I was like, this cannot be the end. He would not be that cruel to just this character. Like he has to keep going. So when then he was reborn, I was like, okay, we're good. We're good. He at least is in a better spot, more or less now.
What
Yeah.
happened? Like, what doesn't happen to him in this book? He is the vessel of a deity. He
Uh-huh.
gets thrown against his will by another deity into the proverbial wolves. He starves himself because he doesn't want to eat, human flesh, which is logical. He is taunted. He's thrown to the matron. He, that entire thing happens. I'm not going to describe it in
Yep.
detail. And then when everything else ends, like, okay, well, I guess I gotta die now for the wolf to go free. Uh, and then he's reborn in a new body, and that new body still only has one eye because, of course, it does because this guy cannot win.
Yep.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
And then Gertrude comes along and is like, "You want to get shit faced?" And Talk's like, "Yeah, I'd like that."
Fuck yeah.
My friend's gonna be there as well. Who's your friend? A girl. Ah, even better.
Oh, I just thought of such a dark joke right there.
Oh no.
I'll cut it out of the episode, but my first thought was, "Little does Talk know Stoney doesn't want anything to do with men right now."
Oh no.
Oh God. Okay, cut the tape. Cut the tape. Okay.
Yep,
Yeah.
cut it right there.
I uh
Oh.
I I thought Tooldo coming in at the end, like being kind of reborn and seeing like just walking up, he's like, "Your talk? Yeah, glad to see you're back. We'll see ya. I just want to make sure my brother is all right."
See ya when I see ya.
Doesn't even tell Talk who he is, and Talk's like, "Who the hell was that
Fuck
guy?"
is that guy? Yeah.
Should I know him?
Looks vaguely familiar, but also not.
And then
Um.
Hatan, of course, walks up to Tool and is like, "Hey, there's woods over there. You want to go fuck?"
Oh boy. You brought up Head so I have to kind of we have to go there. We can't
Yeah,
do a Members of Vice episode without talking about Eckovian, but Head in this book is great. Let's just put it that way before we get to Eckovian and the carnal lust. Anyway, that's a great joke, but we're gonna get to that later. Head in this book is like Kilava for the Imos, where she's not representative of the whole, but she's that much cooler than the whole, but also kind of not. Like Kilava is different for, well, a whole ton of reasons. On the one hand, she's still living in this husk of a skeleton.
yep,
Um, and she doesn't actively hunt down and kill Jagged, but she also doesn't, go the extra mile, let's say. And Head on, for all that she's cool and she despises, this internecine warfare of like brother against brother and clan against clan, just horseshit, still is this sort of archetypical Barghast warrior of, I'm a badass. I'm beyond badass. Come at me. We're gonna fuck in the woods now. You're coming with me. And in 2 words, head on rules. Um, but also, oh boy, she doesn't overcome the cultural differences, she is still very much a Barghast, for better or worse. And that comes up a lot. I mentioned Kilava already. With a lot of cultures in this book, where you have like these outcasts, these outstanding individuals, let's say, that eventually are still in a way not quintessentially what their culture depicts, but they're pretty fucking close. Like Hetan is close to the Bardias warrior, the female Bardias. So I don't know where I'm going with this. I just want to say that like, head on rules. I fucking love head on, but also I feel kind of weird about loving head on because the culture she represents, I'm not okay with. Like, yeah, okay, let's kill each other for fun. Let's go bang behind some woods. Why not? Mm, we gotta talk about him, right? You know we must. I know we must. You know we must.
Yeah. I was trying to save him for maybe the last character we talked about, but we've kind of talked about all of them so far.
I think so.
Oh, we haven't
Are there
talked about
more?
Gnos.
Thank God. Okay.
Uh, I love Gnos' arc in this book where he goes from like insecure commander who doesn't know what the fuck he's doing to at the end of the book being the master of the deck who doesn't know what the fuck he's doing but realizes, well, I gotta do something to get the ball rolling.
Yep.
And he finally gains the respect of the bridge burners, which is a really big accomplishment because like one of when he is in the Bargas camp, one of the idiot bridge burners comes to deliver a message of thinking of trying to break out of the camp. And Gnos makes a joking comment like, "Oh, maybe this time I should kill the messenger." And the guy is like, "I wouldn't advise that. The last captain that drew his sword on me, I killed him real quick." And by the end of the book, Perron just has their respect and is a bridge burner at the end of the book. He made it.
I think it's Picker that says the quote, like, the knives are now turned the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Something like that.
that's right before they part, and it comes in like a genuine moment because
Yeah.
it's right after they made the joke of Picker like half my back pay that we die before you do. We'll pay at Hood's gate. And then she realizes that's not what I want him to know. I want him to know that we actually like him.
You're cool. We like you. You can stay around.
Genos in this book is it was not the last time. I lied. Uh,
You're good.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Holy shit. Okay. So, Genos in this book then. Um, I'm going to be honest. On a read especially, I didn't quite like Genos, especially in Gordon's. He is this wimpy, snotty piece of shit. He is noble. He is commissioned. He buys He outright tells Whiskey Jacket, like, I could buy a whiskey a fist hood and no one will tell me anything.
Yep.
And in this book, he's too clingy. He is just weirdly insecure. No, I shouldn't say weirdly. It's perfectly understandable he's insecure, but he's so like eh. And then a scene comes up where Nigel contacts him, right? Through
Mm-hmm.
Silver Fox, and then he just tells her outright to go fuck herself. And like, okay, all right, we're here. I'm listening. And from then on, it just doesn't let go. From like when Gano's balls like drop, for lack of a better word, he is like pedal to the metal all the fucking time. Like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna grab Quick Ben, we're gonna save Burn. We're gonna fuck over the crippled god, we're gonna fuck over the Panions, we're gonna like screw over everybody. We're gonna move all the pieces around like there's no one's business. And then I'm gonna sanctify the House of Change because fuck you. That's why.
Yep.
So yeah, in this book, Genos' arc is amazing, and he finally becomes the person you want to see him to be. Because in Gordon's, he's fine. He ends the book fine. He is worthy of a captainship, sure. At least he didn't buy it, but he's not accepted, as we mentioned. Here, it's like, yes, more of this. I realize I probably made a lot of enemies by saying that I don't like Genos in the early books, but
I thought he was just okay in Gardens, not gonna lie.
I
Yeah, it's here. Like you said, a lot of characters come into their own in this book.
yeah, yeah. I liked him on my first read, especially. I liked him a lot. He is very much like the first person you relate to. He's like the first POV character. He's the guy through which you see the Malice and Empire most. But he's fine. And then this book rolls around and like, oh yeah. Now we're here. Now we're talking. Let's fucking go.
Yeah.
And he also has some amazing dry humor with Race. He doesn't understand dry humor. So when Race is like, yeah, well, we killed him and ate their livers. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I admire Gnos's tenacity. I think Dujek or Whiskey Jack
Absolutely.
makes a comment about that, and like just his determination to just give the middle finger to all the gods. In Guardians of the Moon, it kind of comes off as immature and weird that he's like seeing a god and he's like, yeah, no, fuck you, go away. And then in this book, when he talks with Night Chill, he's like, wait, So you're telling me that one of the only ways that you get us to do what you want is by making us miserable and giving us like shitty things in our lives? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, well, then your system is absolutely awful. Like, F you. Um, and he even makes her concede, like, you might have a point. And then he's like, you know what? Stand aside. Let mortals do the talking. We'll surprise you. Matt, any thoughts on Ganoes and Memories of Ice?
I feel like you guys covered most of it. I mean, I really liked how when he was made master of the deck and revealed to be that, like took it into serious consideration, I feel like, to try and understand after a certain point where he's like, I guess I'll accept this is what
Mhm.
I'm supposed to be. Um, but I liked how he just kind of did his own thing with it. He's like, you gave it to me. Obviously, it must mean you want me to do something with it. Like you
Yeah.
want, like he comes to understanding, I feel like. I mean, this is how I kind of viewed it of just he's like, this is my job and it's
Mhm.
my thing I'm gonna do. I'm gonna play my hand as no pun intended as master of the deck. Um, and just say, like this is how it's gonna go. I'm gonna make sure the House of Chains, is playing by the same rules as everyone else,
Mhm.
and we're gonna roll with it and see what happens. Which I think is cool because then he's just like, this is us as mortals. He's very taken the word he has said seriously of like, we're gonna take charge. We're not gonna let these immortal beings kind of shove us around anymore. But he does it in more of a mature, grown-up way, which whereas in Gardens it was just more like I feel like it stemmed from him being noble, like, well, you're not gonna tell me what to do. Like,
Yeah.
that's just
Yeah.
not how this works.
Exactly.
And here it's like, this is not how it works just because in principle this shouldn't how it work shouldn't be working. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
I really like the scene at the end of the book where Peron says to Dujek, I don't think I was cut out to be a soldier. And Dujak's like, you shut up. You are so good and you're noble. And Gnos is like, well, I don't really want to be noble. And Dujak's not that kind of noble. You're the kind of noble that you've earned it. You've
You're the good
it's
noble.
it's it's the only kind of noble that matters. So I really like that. And then he walks away because Dujek tells him to go join his fellow bridge burners. And Peron's like,
Aw.
oh, I made it.
I
Yay.
done did it now that there's 10 of us left.
Yeah, now that there's seven of us left.
I was reminded while we're talking about Ganoes that we've committed a sacrilege in not talking about Krupp, and I do not remember how Matt feels about Krupp. So this is gonna be an interesting discussion.
I
Matt, how
thought
do you
he
feel
was
about Krupp?
I thought I thought he was fine in the first book. I was like, he's weird. He's kind of funny. I don't understand him. But this book, I just liked him a lot. I mean, the meme we saw earlier before recording was, I feel, very much described the situation, how Krupp is viewed. And I feel like he just brings a odd sense of, like, I don't know, like just an odd perspective to everything, which helps everyone else think a little more, like, be a little more hesitant, I guess, in the right way of like, let me think about this more. Like maybe this strange fat man has a point. And I mean, I really liked in their meeting, like their big group meeting, and Krupp's like, I already know what we're gonna do. So there's this trade guild, and they're gonna send everything for us, and you're gonna pay them a lot of money, and it's gonna be great. And they're like, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, we'll do that.
And then Cole is like, wait, you've invested in them, haven't you? You're going to be making so much money off of this.
Excuse.
Excuse me, Krupp would never do such a thing. Krupp is too good for such deals.
I,
Oh God.
yeah, I love, and at the end of that meeting, Krupp is like, you all deliberate and you will come to the inevitable conclusion.
Yep.
But I
He
love
drops the
Krupp
mic and leaves.
because, yeah, Krupp also shows like such compassion in this book towards the Maib. And that endears me to him even more than I already was because
Yep.
he brings her something and she's already had several conversations that didn't go great with Corlat. And then Krupp comes and she's like, okay, what do you want? And nothing. I'm here to give you a gift. It's gonna ease your pain. Um and I Krupp is fun because there is a large part, pun intended, with him being fat and all, but there's a large part of him that genuinely is the fat goofball that loves food, But then there's also he uses that real part of himself to mask what's underneath, which is a really compassionate man who is way sneakier and way more intelligent than anyone would ever have guessed. And apparently way more powerful too, because he just gets to stand on an island there after Brood smashes his hammer down.
That
That
and
happened.
his dream world becoming the Warren of whatever for the mime.
Yep. Which reminds me, if Mora was here, we would still be talking about the Mai like 2 hours in. But yeah.
Oh yeah. I really like the Mime.
She is a controversial character, and I can see why. She is like I want to say she's fairly one note, but then she's put through the emotional ringer. Do people complain about Talk like feeling miserable all the book because he is put through the ringer? No, the Mive goes through a similar situation, and like people are like, yeah, but I got that point 2 scenes ago. It can feel a bit stagnant. I get it, but I also like unlike Stony, I don't agree in any conceivable manner. Like I find this stagnant. I find like okay, you can make an argument that like Stony got fridged. The my being boring and stagnant. Oh boy. No offense by the way, because I'm sure a lot of people might think this. It's fine. I thought the same way. Um, it's on a reread with the where it shines because as we've repeatedly mentioned, a lot of shit happens in Memories of Ice. So like having this character who is just one note of I'm hurting, I'm suffering, and I really don't want to hate my child. And I'm gonna end up hating my child because of what she's done to me. And I don't want that. And I would rather die. I would rather burn in like whatever abyss, hell, what have you exists than actually end up hating my child. And you're not allowing me to go out on my own terms. And all like these things compound. It's not like one scene like,
Yep.
okay, we're gonna hit all the beats. No, it compounds. It's a slow, gradual buildup to hatred, and she
Mm-hmm.
hates herself more for that. And it sucks. It really sucks in a book that's already depressing enough as it is.
Yeah. I mean, to people that say that it's boring and stagnant, I would argue that that's what depression is like a lot of the
Exactly.
time. And she is very clearly depressed and even suicidal for large portions of this book. And then you get, we talked about this in our episode. It's the one moment I think I've ever gotten pissed off at Whiskey Jack, where he comes to talk to the Mibe and he's like, well, sometimes our brain makes up weird shit and it's all in your imagination. And I'm like, fuck you, Whiskey Jack. Like, you of all people should know not to say that to someone who's suffering like this. Um, so she just gets scene after scene after scene of feeling like her daughter abandoned her and then feeling like Krupp doesn't come by anymore. And you get that scene with Cole and Murillo talking about her behind her back when they think she can't hear, and she hears them talking about how sad and decrepit she is, and that doesn't help. But then at the end of the book, when she realizes what her daughter has done for her, she finds it in herself to forgive Silver Fox
Mhm.
and thinks that I wish that you were here, daughter, so that I could say all the things that I haven't said. And that
Mhm.
I think is what ties up her whole story into a nice, neat little depression bow.
Um, I should let Matt speak. I'm sorry, but
Yeah, sorry, Matt, you have not been talking very much.
Oh no, you're good. I mean, you guys, I feel like have more to say just because you've read it more times. But I mean, I think like this, like reading through the first time, there was definitely points where I dreaded reading her just because
yeah,
like it's it's understandable. Like I see why her storyline is there, but sometimes when it's there, I'm like, I don't
I
want to
don't
read
care.
this.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't care at this point. Like this is like the same feelings except a little worse than last time,
I get
which
it.
I feel like
Yeah.
is not the best thing to say, but when
I
it's as
think it's
long
also
as
kind of the point.
like
Sorry
it's
to
when
interrupt.
as long as a book as it is, it's kind of like I would rather be moving on to the next scene
Yeah,
where I
yeah.
feel like something more critical is happening
Mm.
and like we can come back to you wallowing in your despair. But at the same time, it was interesting to see her weird dreams and like I guess fever dreams, if you can call it that, like and just the things that happened to her, like the wolves and all those things, I thought was kind of interesting, symbolic, and just how she wrestled with
Yep,
all that. It
yep.
was kind of cool to see and just kind of cool to see the thought process and all that, but it was kind of hard to get through sometimes.
It's it's hard to get through because you have this woman who is wallowing in despair, while on the other like side of the world, you have people who are like in Capistan or in Coral and like shit's going down. I want to see the shit that's going down.
Yeah.
Um, I think Nate earlier brought up motherhood as a theme, and I'm sure you guys have probably discussed this on like the
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
I would like to bring up perhaps an alternate angle because it's definitely about motherhood. Don't get me wrong. Like the Mibe is a personification of postpartum depression, which is
Hmm.
exactly what's happening here, and it happens and it sucks. Um, more I would have a lot more to say about this. I'm unfortunately not a mother, so I wouldn't know how this works. Um, but the Mibe is also an exploration of the deprivation of agency, similar to Felicin, right? Who lost all her ability to do things herself due to external factors which she had no control over. And how she reclaims that agency, how the My brother reclaims that agency versus how Felicin does, are very different because they're fundamentally different people in fundamentally different situations. But the underlying idea is the same: is we have lost our ability to do anything of our own volition because one is, a drugged, chained slave child, and the other physically cannot move.
Hmm.
Um, but the underlying idea is the same because on the one hand, you have the Maib escaping into this dream world where she thinks she's safe until the wolves come. And Felicin, who is in Skullcup, and she's like, okay, I'm in this, I don't want to call it a paradise, more like a haven, a false haven of drugs and my protector who totally loves me. And it all comes crashing down. And for both of them. And how they respond to that is eerily similar because they both lash out in anger, which makes sense because they cannot do anything and they want to find it within themselves to love again and they don't know how. The Mibe thankfully gets a much more happy ending, if one can call it that, than Felicit's in Death of the Gates. But I think it's a very interesting exploration of the same idea, which is why I find it bizarre that people are like dying over Felicin and then just completely ignore the Mibe. Like, okay, I get it. I felt the exact same way on my first read. And if it weren't for Mora, I probably wouldn't be here saying these things because we've discussed it quite a few times about what the Mibe symbolizes and what the Mibe's about and how she embodies all the different themes. And she is probably one of the first of Erickson's many pure theme characters where they don't really have much narrative relevance. Like, okay, she is important because she's like interested in and connected with Talk and like Tog and Fandere
Yeah.
and Silver Fox, obviously, but she doesn't really do anything in the plot beyond be your eyes through which you see the world, or like Calor and how he hates her daughter, and how she goes from, well, this guy really hates my daughter. I should probably keep my daughter away from him. To, God damn, I'm starting to get him. I'm starting to see why. And she hates that dude, and it's soul crushing. Okay, I think Mora will be happy with my brand. I did not deliver as much of a Brucalian run as I would like, but it's too late to go back now. Do you gents have anything more to add before we move on to the big boss?
No, I mean, I don't.
No. Let's
Oh,
let's move on. Itkovian.
oh boy.
Um, one of the best setups, arcs, and then ends for a character that I've ever seen in contained in one single book. Um, he's I kind of feel the same way about Itkovian that I do about Rick. Like, what do you want me to say other than like he's just the fucking best? Like he's a soldier, he's a commander, but he's also a scholar, but he also connects with people. Like he shows compassion to that recruit after they go after the demon stupidly on their own and get slaughtered. Um, his "I am not yet done" throughout after the siege during the siege of Kapistan and then throughout the rest of the book after is incredible. Just his refusal to give up until he doesn't know where he's gonna end or when he's gonna be done, but he knows that he'll know it when he knows it. Um, and just the selfless acts of both. I think him I think him cleansing the Kapistan gets overshadowed a lot by what he does for the IMAS, but that in and of itself is one of like the biggest acts of compassion and love you will ever see in a story, where he takes on the suffering of everyone in the city, all the ones that died and all the ones that are still alive that are gonna have to come up and deal with the aftermath. He takes all of that on himself, and then he keeps carrying it, and then he's like, you know what? I can do more than that. Matt, I know Whiskey Jack was your favorite character, but what are your thoughts on Itkovian?
Oh, he was very much like at the same level as Whiskey Jack by the end. Because like immediately from the start, when they went after the demon, I was like, there's something different about this guy. And throughout the whole book, first half, dealing with the preparation for the siege and then the siege. Um, I thought it was really cool and interesting to see him stick to his vows the whole time that he put upon himself, which I think empowered him to be able to carry all that from the people, all that suffering, and then move on from that to then say, no, I still got the capability to do more. And then to help the Talana Mass in a way that I don't think they thought was possible because all they wanted was just like oblivion, basically. Like, yeah, we'll go hunt down this Jagoot and then let's just cease to exist. And he kind of helped them remember what it's like to live and brought back their memories. And so then when the offer to kind of, die and move on to something, not necessarily oblivion, they're like, no, we're going to go save the rest of our people. Like just that alone, that Kovian could do all that, like I think helped just that continent be able to recover from the devastation of that. And then not only that, he helped set up the Grey Swords to be able to take care of the Teniscari and have them be a part of them now and give them another chance at life that was very much robbed from them. And they had to live probably one of the most horrific ways of living, of like cannibalism and all that. So him being able to give that to three different groups of people, I feel is pretty cool.
I mean, I would be lying if I said I don't have a lot of notes, but I think Matt encapsulates it perfectly. It's just,
Yeah.
dude, that is holy shit. Um, I could talk about Kovian for hours. I don't want to because we have to stop at some point. But I think what makes it go into fucking cool is he is from the very beginning to the very end himself. He doesn't betray his values, his ideas. He somehow, even when his ideas change, he doesn't feel like he himself changed. I'll get to that in a minute. Um, Even when his worldview changes, like when Carnadas is like, dude, your vows are not about Fenner, they're about you. Dude,
Yeah,
Kovian still somehow feels like it's still the same guy who is like, oh yeah, my entire worldview just got turned upside down. My god is gone, but I'm not yet done. I have more to do. Um, where do I fucking start? Holy shit, there's a lot to say. Okay, I'm gonna bring this into a pop culture reference. Have you guys, either of you, watched Hacksaw Ridge with Andrew Garfield?
I have never seen Hacksaw Ridge.
Heard a ton about it, but I've never seen it.
Yeah. So the TLDR is I don't actually remember where it happens, which is it's either I think it's Iwo Jima, which tells you enough about what it's probably going to be about. It's the story of a field medic who was a conscientious objector named Desmond Doss, who was among other things very religious, and his religion did not allow him to touch a gun. Okay, he was a combat medic. He The movie is a bit different from the real history for numerous reasons. One of those reasons being that what the shit that Desmond actually pulled was so impossibly insane that like people felt if we're gonna include that in the movie, people are gonna think we're bullshitting them. Uh, Look him up after this. But the gist is the guy was like he would life way more times than is humanly reasonable or possible to save wounded soldiers on Hacksaw Ridge. Among others, he also used to help wounded Japanese soldiers. And one of his mottos, at least in the movie, I don't actually know if this happened in real life, was "Please God, help me save one more." In total, he saved about 80 people, which is nuts. Watch the movie; it's heart wrenching, it's beautiful, it's brutal, it's amazing. Um, and I think the reason why it reminds me of Ikovian is probably obvious to anyone's actually watched the movie. Ikovian is probably was my favorite character from the entire series in my first read through, and I think he might still be my favorite. It fluctuates, but he's always at the top somewhere. I just he is the fact that he's only in one book and his entire arc happens from like where we meet him to his death is in one book is so beyond nuts to me. Like, how the fuck do you add so much to a single guy in a book that's already chock full with so much? I don't know. Um, but Ikovian, what makes him so interesting to me is he has lived his entire life by one creed, and that creed is basically war. He is one of the sacred trifecta of one of the prominent gods of war.
Mm-hmm.
He from childhood, like before he reached adulthood, he joined the Grey Swords. For like the last 15, 20 years, he's 30 years old. For the last 15, 20 years, he has only known war. And he's damn good at it. I mean, he's a very good warrior. He's a very good rider. He's a very good commander. But above all, when it comes to it, when he has a crisis, like, what am I doing here? Is this what I really believed in? Is this what I want? Because his god is gone. His order is sworn to new gods. He is no longer needed, but he knows he's not done. He is not yet done. And the transcendental to me thing about Eckovian is that the ideal that he chooses at the very end is peace. It's the antithesis of the entire thing he's lived by. Because everyone, even the Hamas himself, like, yeah, we can do one more battle. That's fine. It's just one. Like, we've lived for 300,000 years. Who cares? It's just one more battle. And Eckovian steps in, it's like, no, no, enough's enough. We're not gonna ask more of them. We're not gonna ask them to give more of themselves to us. That's selfish. That's wrong. No. And it's one of the reasons why I think, and I mean this in a good way, people miss the point when they say, why did Eckovian free the eye mask when he did? Because that was the point. Because Eckovian chooses the higher ideal in a moment when everyone else is like, yeah, well, we'll have them fight one more battle. I'm like, no, no, no more battles. Enough. Enough's enough. No more blood, no more slaughter, no more senseless bullshit. It doesn't matter what it costs because it's the right thing to do. And you guys are not going to try to do the right thing. So I will do that because I'm not done enough. Because there is a lot of guilt and self-loathing that rides Eckovian's actions. Well, he gave Bukalian 3 days
Yep.
because he failed to save the people of Kapistan because whatever. Even when he succeeded against all expectations, it's like he feels like he failed. So when he does this one thing, and it's similar to Buke in many ways, right? Where he has this one choice and he takes it without ever looking back. That's what makes Eckovian so fucking cool to me. And I will say, and this will get me shot, that I think Eckovian's quote, compassion being priceless, in isolation, is a bit wrong. And I mean this in a good way. It's a bit incomplete because compassion is priceless, but it costs him his life. We humans don't understand compassion. And then you have Ganos who sacrifice the House of Chains because of compassion. You have, oh, and because of spite and a whole lot of other reasons. You have Coltane who escorts the refugees when he could have just dumped them and survived, and then went back to Aaron, took the army, and then went back and just killed everybody and washed the rebellion himself because of compassion, because it's the right thing to do. You have Fiddler agreeing to take Absalom back home because it's the thing to do. It's the right thing to do. You have Kalam who sees 1,300 dead children. Like, okay, you know what? I can fix this. I should fix this because it's the right thing to do. So when he says that humans don't understand compassion, he is talking because of the shit he has seen, because of the tremendous suffering and violence that he's seen while he's unraveling because his soul cannot bear what he's taking. And the reason Eckovian's quote works in the moment is because he put his money where his mouth is. He's not like, yeah, compassion's really nice, but I'm just gonna let you fight one more battle. I'm like, no, no, no. Compassion is priceless because my life is worth less than compassion. Everyone's lives are worth less than this moment. And I'm not gonna allow you to go in there one last time. There will be no more battles because to be frank, I don't think Nightchill would have released the IMAT after this. Silverfox wants to. Tattershill might, Belgian might, but not Nightchill. And I don't think Nightchill I don't think Silverfox has the leverage necessary, right, to force the issue. So this is why I think Eckovian's so interesting and why I think he is simultaneously not done, despite being decidedly done. But his quote is a brilliant setup to be proven wrong. That humans do understand compassion, goddammit. Yes, it's priceless. Yes, it's an extreme ideal that we should all strive for. But it's not enough. It's not enough. Optimism, compassion, these are all virtues, but actions are more important. And Eckovian takes action. And that's why he's amazing. Oh, I'm finding getting over Eckovian so much. I'm sorry. Oh, God. I'm done. I'm done. I think I'm done. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
I had a lot to say.
I was the Eckovian simp, but now I'm done.
Yeah, exactly. Nailed it. Oh, boy.
I think the scene that stuck out most to me at the end of Eckovian's journey at the end of the book this time is that scene where I think he's talking to Pran Chol, and he's like, "Okay, give me your pain," and they're like, "You can't take it." Yes, I can. No, you can't. Give me it now. Like, I'm not taking no for an answer. I will stand up to all of you.
I mean,
You're giving it to me right now. I'm giving you no choice.
do you remember the scene where he is about to embrace whatever god Rathfan has taken on Rathfenner?
Yep.
And he's like, give me it. Come on. I don't care if it was some alien eldritch deity. I don't fucking care. Come on. Come on, big boy.
Give it to me.
I'm right here.
And the god runs away.
Yeah. Because like it's going to kill him in all probability, but he doesn't give a shit.
I do also want to say it's a just for comparison purposes, Ecovian takes on the Talani Rasa's pain, of course, at the end without hesitation. But earlier in the book, he looks into Corlat's eyes and is like, "Nope, I can't do that."
Nope. Yeah, that's too much. But that's also because he's not lost his purpose yet, because he still has a reason to go on beyond I need to do this. He still has the Grey Swords, he still has his people, he still has Kabistan to defend, but now he has nothing and he finds new meaning and purpose, and that's I'm gonna start gushing again, so I should stop right here. Oh boy, I really love it, Govian. Oh, I'm sorry. I hogged the spotlight too much. I'm sorry. I apologize to both Nate and Matt for being inconsiderate, but I had a lot to say about it, Govian, because I particularly like the guy.
Oh no, you're good.
Oh,
Your perspective is always an interesting one just because you've read it so much more than me. Because only reading it once, there's only so much I can say. But
Mhm.
yeah, no, I thought it was interesting. The because I know Nate likes the compassion quote, but I thought it was interesting how you're like, yes and no. But no, I think it like this series does put a lot of those questions out there and is like,
I
what do
don't
you
know.
think? Yeah.
Yeah, I will say the Ecovian quote about compassion is my favorite from the series, like taken in isolation and applied to our world, because I feel like our
Yep.
world can use that quote so much more.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I one of the funniest parts about recording Memories of Ice with Matt is that we see that conversation with Whiskey Jack and Ecovian, where Ecovian's like, "We're never gonna meet again, are we?" And the next day after recording that, I got to work and I told one of my coworkers who's kind of been wanting to know how the podcast goes. I told him we just had this scene yesterday. Little does Matt know both of them are going to be dead by the end of the book. And then we got to
Uh,
Whiskey Jack's death, and Matt was like, "I thought for sure when Covian thought that it would be Covian that died." And I did not have the heart to tell Matt, "Well, you see."
Actually, yeah. Well,
You see, it's actually going to be both. And the thing that like I remember, I think it's at the start of 25. Um,
Oh yeah, the epigraph is
the
like the death
epigraph.
of Whiskey Jack.
Yeah, it's the recount of the slaying of Whiskey Jack, and I was like, that's too real. I don't want to see that right now.
No, from the time that we read Whiskey Jack's death until the next time we recorded it, I think Matt mentioned Whiskey Jack's death to me every single time we saw each other.
Yeah, I was like, this is stupid.
it's fucking soul crushing, yeah.
I'm like, he should have been in his mountain fortress with Corlat while he tends his garden. I'm like, this
He
is
gets
dumb.
pans thrown at him. It's dumb. I don't
Yeah,
like this. This is
I'm like,
dumb.
there's no point.
Why do
There's
bad things happen to good people?
like, there's 7 other books. I don't know if I want to go through them at this point.
Don't you worry, Matt. There's more heartbreak to follow.
Oh boy. I do not envy you. The heartbreak. Oh dear.
That's that's when you know a book is good, though, is when it can
Yeah.
It's true.
deeply get you like that. Because I've read some series. Yeah, I'll just say it. The Poppy War. I read the Poppy War trilogy, which, in my opinion, was not great. And every plot twist and every character death, I was like that meme from the guy in Top Gun that was like, "Oh no." Anyway, whereas this one,
Anyway,
I'm like deeply affected, and when I knew Whiskey Jack's part was coming the second the section started. But when it was over, I still had to set the book down and take a breath for like 3 minutes before I picked the book back up again.
yep, exactly how I felt. I was like, I'm gonna set this down and not do anything for a minute, and then I'm gonna watch a few funny videos and go to bed.
I
But
think one of the reasons hit so hard is because A, it's completely preventable, and B, like you're told he had him. He had him dead to rights. Cal was
uh,
fucked there.
a
And then
hundred
no.
percent. Like when you find out at the end when Dujek is like, yeah, he used to spar with Decimal Tour and give him a run for his money. I'm like, are you kidding me? He was that good. he was that good and he dies because his stupid leg gave out. I'm like, that's dumb. That is so dumb.
And then Erickson makes sure to drive home the point for you. Like he wants you to know Whiskey Jack's gone because this Kylo's sword, his leg breaks, Kylo's sword impales him, rips out through his heart and his lungs out the side of his body, and then Corlat watches the life leave his eyes, and you're like, well,
It's
Fuck you,
official.
dude.
that's
Fuck
it.
you. Oh boy. I think it's fitting that we close with like the epilogue because that pulled my heart out as well.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah, it gives me
Oh
chills
dear.
every time.
That was such a good prologue though. I loved it. I mean that epigraph or whatever you want to call it, the ending. Yeah, it was amazing.
It
Yeah.
was like I vividly remember that I read this book on the recommendation of a friend, who with whom I would like chat often about the book. He was very for one, he titled himself like Shield Anvil because he knew the pain I was gonna go through and like I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna help you. Um and also he told me to look out for like the last the epigraph that I it happened to me. The epilogue
I
of
got
Memories
him.
of Ice because he's like, okay, you should wait until book three finishes to like fully form an opinion of like what do you think the series is gonna be like. I mean, I was on board by book two. Like book three is when I thought like, oh, I'm really gonna like this book, and then the epilogue hits, and like the only thing I can think of at the time, like, oh, fuck you, Steve.
You had to
So
bring it up.
it got me. It got me good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I loved it how it opens up with Piran like swinging open the door, dropping it off his bag of stuff, and he's like, "I'm home. I'm gonna go hang out with my friends now. Bye. Can you clean up this mess?"
Yep. And then he gets to the bar, and of course, all the bridge burners. Krupp has just finished telling his tale, and all the bridge burners are like, "Nope, too raw. Can't do it right now. I'm sorry, but no. Like, just we're not gonna tell those stories right now." Uh, and then the way Duerker just speaks up, and it ends the book perfectly. Like, let me tell you the tale of Coltane, newly raised fist of the Seventh Army.
I think what gets me most on like a reread isn't necessarily like the fact it's gonna tell the tale, but he's holding the fucking cloth, dude.
Oh yeah,
He's holding the cloth with the name of the Marine, and I'm fucking crying. Like, fuck you, Steve.
Yep,
Not fair.
it really
It's not
isn't.
fucking fair.
yep.
Well,
And like you said, Lee, about not envying Matt of the heartbreak that's to come. Duiker makes a comment here in this scene. Spindle's like, "What worth is this story? It's just gonna break our hearts again." And Duiker's like, "Yeah, getting your heart broken is worth it. Like there's value in it. It teaches you something."
yeah.
It's true.
God damn it, Steve. Okay.
Lee's like, "Damn it, I have to go read Memories of Ice again."
Yeah, god damn it. Okay. Well, you got me.
A good one. I'm not reading it
I know.
again for a while, but it's a good one.
That's what I thought about Dead House Gates, and then I end up reading it again, and like then I vowed I'm not gonna read this shit again. Nope. So far, I've kept that vow for about a year. I don't know how long it will last. Probably not that long. Oh boy. Well, I think, gentlemen, thank you so very much for having me.
Of
It's been
course.
an
It's a
absolute
pleasure.
blast. We're gonna end on this brilliant, note of there is value in breaking your heart, and
Yep.
me sobbing quietly.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on, making time in your night over there to
It's been a blast.
be with us for a couple hours.
I would you don't need to tell me twice to come over and geek about Inkovian, as you probably noticed. Oh boy, yeah. It's been yeah, it's been tremendously fun. I hope this is Matt's favorite book. I didn't ask, but that's the impression I got.
It's right. I feel like I really like Dead House Gates though. I'm torn. But
That's the dilemma, right?
because they
Oh,
were both so well done that I was like, I don't know. I really like both of them.
oh
So,
boy.
but it's definitely one of my favorite books ever, I'd say now. It was really good. So,
That's a
but
much
yeah.
more happy note to close on.
That's a much
Yep.
more happy note. One of my favorite books ever as well. May have been my favorite book ever if there weren't several other books in the series that I like more.
That sums it up pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so thank you once again for coming on,
Thank you for having me.
and we'll be back next week with the first Beauchelin and Corbel Birch novella.
Excellent.
So
Woohoo.
Have fun.